Off now with a small post-show discussion. My name is Tony. I run the Director Theatre here in Cork, and we were honoured to have the cast and crew and creatives in our space for a while. Well, say 2 weeks ago it was now, for a whole week, and in constructing what you saw tonight, or helping to construct what you saw tonight, and in the week that they were with us, we toyed with video a lot, lighting a lot, and generally I think the whole piece kind of came together in a space very similar to the stage in there. What's normal in a post-show discussion like this, because I've just been asked to do it now, it's probably easier if somebody chairs it, to be fair. Is the whole idea of it really is for you guys to maybe ask some of the cast, some of the creatives, and indeed Sasha, the director, maybe some questions that you might have about the piece, particularly Patrick, perhaps, who has played it a few times,
yes,
I think, in the past. And in fact, I'm going to start off, so I'll start the ball rolling, and I'll ask Patrick, how different is this production to previous productions you have performed in? Not how better or worse, but how different?
Totally. I played Willie Loman at 19 at a Catholic school in Philadelphia called the Sal. Surprisingly, prior to this, it was the best Salesman I had done. I had a 34-year-old Biff who went on to star on The Wire named Al Brown. I had a Happy who was on Broadway a lot, Russell Live. Anyway, it was a good company, even though I was obviously a stupid age to play this. And how much shoe polish can you wear? I played it again at 25 at Temple University in a production that was awful. It may have been because I was drunk, but I'm not going to talk about that right this second. I played it again 12 years ago at East Tennessee State with my son James playing Happy, and he was a wonderful Happy. It was an uneven production. We had a Linda who was a student. She was the right age, 50 or so, 48, but for some reason afraid of me. Am I a frightening guy? Jesus, I don't think so. But I'd come on stage in that first scene and she would go, "That's my teacher, that's my teacher," and it never got anywhere. So I started shouting a lot. It was a very shouty production. So here we are. They were all standard. We used, in all but one case, we used the North original score, which is scored for flute, which I think one of Sasha's many genius additions to this was if you start off with dun 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 dun, and I come in with two cases weighing 40 pounds each, you're sitting there going, this is going to be a long night. And I think that's a bad way to go with this show. There is a trap for an actor to play the last scene in the first scene. So I'm tired to the death, Linda, I couldn't make it, becomes, holy God, how long is this? Whereas if it is just, I'm tired to the death, boy, a rough day at the office. We've got somewhere to go with it. So
it leaves your headroom, I suppose.
Oh yeah, and all of a sudden he's not there yet. Let's not play the end of the play. And Sasha was really great about that. So I don't know if we have any Miller purists. I think the beauty of this, we've not changed the line, so we have been absolutely true to the text. Also, I teach this play a lot. I'm a professor at East Tennessee. I teach it in all of my classes. I used to teach it as a realistic play with expressionistic overtones. When I go back to Tennessee, that's one of the reasons they paid me to have this sabbatical. I'll be better. I will teach it as an expressionistic play with realistic overtones, which I think is much truer to what Miller intended. So we didn't use the Kazan set, and I think that's a trap, because most of you are used to the Joe Melziner set and the Kazan direction. Not only have I done 4, but I've seen all the major Salesmen in the last 30 years, except for Philip Seymour Hoffman last year, which I did not. But Dennehy, which prior to this I would have said was my favorite, now it isn't. This is. But I love Dennehy's performance. But again, everyone used the traditional set and music, and I think the deconstruction that Sasha brought and that the company brought, Sarah and the musicians and the sound folks, the AV folks, opened the text up in a legitimate way, in a very respectful, I think we were very respectful to Arthur Miller, and I think that's really important. So I'm sorry.
Just think about something you said there, and asked Sasha,
Yeah.
about directorial choices in the piece, and you chose to put a lot of stuff on video, on screenage. What prompted you to do that?
Well, sorry. At the end of production, you usually get sick, so now I'm sick.
Oh, that's
The reason why I wanted to do this play really involves around two factors. The first one is memories, and I always wanted to do memories as a kind of something that's mediated, something that comes from originally something that comes from those films. You know, like when you put a 60mm film, and you watch the birthday party, or you watch memories from a video. And so for me, that was one of the starting points, to think of a memory as something that is recorded and then it's being played. Of course, it is internally being played in the mind, but for me, that was one. Also, second big thing for me was meeting Pat and realizing that's this is one of the plays I always kind of wanted to do. But when I met Pat, I said, okay, this is my Willy Loman. And it is true, because we met in Serendipity, and within the first 15 minutes, I said to him, you're Willy Loman, and I want to do that assessment with you, because I recognize that. So the moment I recognized that, and I had this idea of the videos and visuals, that was kind of a starting point for me. And then later on, I found out, in discussion with Pat, that actually the first version of the play was called In the Man's Mind. So that actually the Miller's pretext to this was the notion of playing with the mind and what's in the mind and how the mind works. And so then I said, oh great, that's even better. And then as we progressed through play, quite a lot of things that we discovered in a way how he combined things, how he put things, very cinematic. There is something to do with American dramaturgy around that period, late 40s, that is very cinematic. And the play before that was Glass Menagerie. And I've done it pretty much as a film as well.
Yeah, this projection in the actual stage.
So there is something, again, to do with Miller doesn't explicitly say video, but if you look at the structure, if you look at how he combines, there really is a crossover between the film. And again, casting and working with Pat, who's as well as theater, a very known film and TV actor, also added to that dimension.
We throw it open now for questions from the floor. Anybody has anything to ask?
Yes.
I have a question, mostly for Pat and for Sasha. I love the audio visuals and the whole idea of the disconnectivity or disconnectedness of, memory, and how nothing is necessarily chronological or fluid. But every time I've seen the play done, it's done with the actual actors in flashback or younger versions of Happy and Biff. And my question is, how did that affect you, having to interplay with an audiovisual behind you as an actor rather than real people, not having the energy or the emotion to play opposite? Was that a challenge, and as a performer, how did that affect
It's
you?
extremely difficult. Fortunately, since I have done a lot of television and film, over 200 television shows and films, I'm used to working with disembodied voices. You film your close-up. If you're lucky, the other actor is off camera, but if you're not lucky, you got to stage, an AD. So you get sort of used to playing to disembodied voices in your head doing television and film anyway. But with this, again, what I loved when Sasha said to me, you're going to play Ben as well as Willie, that would have been the moment for me to bail. If I was going to bail on the production, it would have been then. Because all of a sudden, if you buy me as Ben and Willie, then everything else makes sense. And I've always taught the play in the sense that I'm not sure Willie exists. I mean, Ben exists. I don't think there is a Ben. Or it's possible. I've gotten many a good student paper that says Ben is only a figment of Willie's imagination. So I had zero problems playing Ben, and I hope for your sakes, I let my hair grow very long. It was its natural white. I had that silly tuxedo that we got from some place down in Podrick Street. And I went for a different voice, a kind of and it felt great playing Ben. I'm really very proud of that Ben, by the way, in some ways more than Willie in a sense. So I felt great about that. Then after that, I felt all the other images. I love that we evolved. This has been the Worcester group in the United States is probably my favorite group. If I had to pick a group of actors I'd like to be a part of, that would be it.
Who asked them with their suit, I think that went through.
Oh, did they? Yeah, he did.
I saw their
wait.
I saw their toilets and Cressida using audio visuals, and it did not work. But this really worked.
There are
when
times
it started, I thought, oh God,
What I liked
it really
about
worked.
what I liked about Sasha when we talked, he said, "Hey, what happens if this doesn't work, Sasha?" He says, "Out it goes." So, for example, it wasn't quite working in the scene where Biff confronts me in the hotel room with using just the audio visual. It wasn't powerful enough. That's a powerful scene. And so we brought the current Biff because at this point the memories are fracturing and the past is becoming the present. As O'Neill says, the past becomes the present and the future too, so let's drink up and forget it. So we brought it together in that, and now, that only happened, 3 nights before we opened? So,
the first preview day.
first preview day.
For the record, that happened the first preview day. Add those 8 lines to the.
To the total.
Yep.
You're getting paid by the line, dude. I told you. I gotta talk to my agent.
Actually, I have a question for James over there. How does it feel playing opposite your dad again?
I love. We have a very small family and a very close family, and actually coming over here, I've actually seen my family grow from literally 3 people to like 35 or 40. Every night of the show, I've had a new cousin and it's incredible to me. Like it's been me, my brother, and my dad, and we've been very close because we've sort of been the Cronin men against the world kind of thing. And so to be able to come here where we have family, and for him to be able to retrace his ancestry, to connect with my sense of a past and belonging to a place and to a story and to a history and identifying with that is incredible. And to be able to do what we both love doing together, I'm very happy, very lucky man. So.
Any other questions for me? Don't be shy.
Something positive after this, you gotta go positive. Don't go deep. Positive.
Let's talk about the laughs. No. Tonight was the first audience that got. Miller thinks the play is funny. He never liked Lee J. Cobb. Hated Lee J. Cobb's performance because Lee J. Cobb was a doer. He played tragedy. So when Miller had a choice to make the original recording of the original Salesman, he kept everyone from the Broadway production, Millie Dunnick and the guy from Bodies, Kevin McCarthy, kept all those people, but replaced Cobb with Thomas Mitchell, who had played Willie in the Chicago Company in 1950. Because Mitchell, being an Irish-American actor, got the jokes. He got the fun of this play. And Miller loved that. He loved the sense that this isn't a downer. And tonight you guys were great. I know the American references. Knock a homer, Biff, knock a homer. It's not going to be a big yuck, but the New York Giants, that worked, and all of Stanley was great. Where the hell is Stanley?
You had to run away.
Okay, Stanley was great. I wish I had died in the war. I mean that's good stuff, and it stops, and Charlie bought a General Electric 20 years ago, and it's still good, the son of a bitch. Is a funny line. And I loved, we have an extraordinary cast. And I would like the cast and also our production team to go around and introduce themselves. You might have questions based on what they did. Gene, of course, works at UCC as a microbiologist and stuff, and was, I think, an extraordinary, the best Linda I've had by far.
A pleasure to be Linda.
And moving around.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm Aidan. I played Bernard.
The only guy to play both the young and the old, which gave him the problem that the rest of us didn't have to face.
Aidan is a second year drama and theatre studies student, so just
Right.
to emphasize the great potential that is in him.
Thank you.
The woman responsible for the extraordinary audio visuals that you saw tonight, a fellow Yank, Sarah. New Jersey makes them, Cork takes them home. Trevor,
Trevor, I played Howard.
yes, is on Fair City or Fair Shitty, whatever's that. Actually, I've gotten hooked on it. I love Coronation Street, and my family watches it. So I've gotten also into Fair City. So I'm looking. You're a villain, aren't you?
Yeah, something like that. Not in it at the moment.
Oh, damn. Well,
Put it on record.
let's get your agent down here. And Hollis is our musician extraordinaire. Talk about you're in the PhD program
I'm
here.
doing a PhD in music composition at UCC.
Ah, UCC.
And Sarah's doing PhD in digital arts at UCC.
Right. And Neil finished at, yes, the wonderful Neil finished at UCC, or did you?
I'm still in the process of an MA
Oh, you're in the MA program, right, in
composition.
composition as well, and was our sound man and also played instruments as well.
In the dark.
In the dark, yes, and then our stage manager, Barbara. Yes. James, you've met my son on and off stage, yes. And Anna Rosa, and behind the camera is Helena, and then Rachel, our wonderful woman of all times.
And you're on the sun,
And my other
neglected one.
Getting married. Get married. Go to sleep
You
here.
can ask James, he hated playing happy, because what happens is, just as I ignored him there, that's the way it is. He just gets ignored. I mean, it is life.
Could I ask some of the students particularly how they felt about working on this production? Positive answers, please.
I have a specific question, actually. It was a conversation that you and I had started and we never finished. We talked about the fact that you were playing in to live action for like the first time, and I never really got you here to like talk about the difficulties and what was interesting or compelling or whatever about playing music with live people while they're interacting and doing things, and what were the challenges, or how did that?
The biggest challenge is just not stepping on your toes. Because the thing, I mean, I'm happy to contribute as much as I can to the scene, but if you can't hear the lines, there's no point in me being there at all.
Yeah.
Or you being there at all. Anybody being there. So basically try to somehow stay out of the way as much as I can and contribute as much as I can at the same time. So it's a little bit of a different process for playing because it involves playing and also listening to the actual lines and trying to judge how loud I am at all times so as not to cover anybody up. So that's, yeah. And try to be interesting but not too interesting because you don't want to, again, overshadow what you guys are doing.
So can we get back to Tony's question?
And the others?
I thought it was a fantastic experience. Like I feel so grateful to be only like finishing my second year in drama and theatre and to be able to be involved in professional theatre production. It was great, like learning stuff throughout the like first and second year and being able to put it into practice now. feel a lot more confidence as an actor and as a performer, that like so preparing me for when I go into the professional theatre world once I finish college. So yeah, it was nothing but beneficial.
What I did is put on YouTube, recruitment.
Oh yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
But it is something, it is something that UCC is actually quite good at, is basically placing students into,
Yeah.
in at the deep end in a way, into professional productions
Yeah.
and getting them to perform with more seasoned professional actors. I just want to just jump over the water a little bit to Serbia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sasha, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about how that came about.
We finish on 25th, that's Saturday, and then we have a few days rest, and then we're flying on 30th to Belgrade, it's the capital of Serbia, and we're going to perform 31st to 1st in Belgrade Drama Theatre for this production. So that's going on a tour, and then we're coming back with something. So that's already been arranged, and we're going. We will have to kind of do a different version for that.
Serbian adaptation.
So we work on a cycle level, and I'm not always, in addition to playing roles, we're also working as an assistant director, and she's also a company member of Kolectiv, which is my theatre, because we worked for about the last 10 years, different projects.
When you say a different version,
We work a lot on site.
yeah.
For example, like it may not be immediately noticeable, but for me, Everyman was a site. I didn't treat it as a theatre. I treated it as a site.
Yeah. So you use what was here.
So I use what was in a site. So therefore you have purple risers, you have boxes, you have lights coming from the boxes. It's a site. And we open the walls, we have just, you know, some sail, some piece of cloth basically hanging on to which you project. Now we're going to Belgrade Drama Theatre, which is a modern new space. So it looks like a smaller version of Cork Opera House. You know, now that's going to be something else, and we have to work very fast to adapt to that. So
Are you touring the screens, for example?
we'll keep the same concept of screens,
Yeah.
and the locations, so that we don't really affect actors that much. But however, we're not taking everybody, so there has to be some changes dramaturgically. We have to rework things. So like your story of changing lines on a preview is going to be amazing, because you're going to have a rehearsal on 31st, and God knows what's going to happen. You're going to change probably half of it.
Why is this the first I'm hearing about this? That's my question. Donald and I are out.
Yeah, I was curious about your rehearsal process. Like, how did you begin the rehearsal process with an international cast?
Well, I got over here early, and Sasha and I, you know, talked about different visions, and I did some workshops on acting for the camera. Jody is a colleague of mine. We've taught acting for the camera together. She's getting her PhD in where?
Media and film in Sussex.
At Sussex. And so, you know, it evolved very organic. Both, I studied with Richard Schechner back in the 60s, who is famous for Dionysus in '69, and who is a revolutionary theater figure. We rehearsed in the nude and the dark, and you know, that sort of thing. And then Fade Out never went. We didn't do that either.
Cork. And we're not doing it in Serbia.
Sasha talks about sight. Schechner teaches that life isn't important and theater is. And so you should act life and live theater. I'm not buying all of this, but I am saying that it was a very well, let's block now, 3 steps down. It was a very open, organic process, which I haven't done in a long time. And I love
You
it.
got that, just as a pure theatre goer, not anything in your profession, but absolutely as an observer, total compliments. It was just an extraordinary, very high energy all of the time.
Yes.
And the music, like I would probably be, even the viola might be a little bit lower, but it's even the violin, it's high. It keeps you, sometimes you want to step down a little bit because it keeps you up. There's kind of a soft aggression about it. But what's extraordinary, you were absolutely, only when I see you sitting there, I didn't realise you were the wife, but
Amazing.
you were really, because you could, the core story is so adaptable to anywhere. Like you could change the quips to make them Irish because you play an Irish mother of maybe not this necessarily this generation, but certainly of our mothers growing up, because they were there to support the men. And you could, I'm sure in Serbia it would be exactly the same, because the women were the core, and it was really extraordinary.
I think there are quite a few comparisons, definitely with the Irish playwrights.
Very much so.
And and comments have been made over the last few days, the sort of likens to the likes of Dancer Blues or Big Maggie or whatever, because the confrontations that happen and the choices being made by women all over the world are exactly the same. And this was, I think, very challenging, because deep in your heart you have to figure out if you had to choose between your husband or your sons, and to try and convey a broken heart in having to make a choice. And over the last few days, women in particular, have come up and said, I found myself in that position. So it is very, very real. It's as real today as it was in 1949 and will be 100 years from now. And it was interesting in preparing for it. We read a lot, the notes that Miller had written about the women in his plays. And going back to what Paddy said earlier, very often they were portrayed, or they were conveyed as, being sort of sentimental or being kind of doormatish, in different productions. But Linda Lohman is not that. And then I found a reference to what Arthur Miller said, that his women were the auxiliaries, in fact. They were the people. How many times do I ask, are you going to talk to Howard? 6 times in the play.
But you get that. I mean, you get them completely, and it's there, but it's not there, and it's really wonderful. You can almost feel, I don't know anything about the timing, but you can hear a Conshawn Casey without the Big Maggie sort of Irishness about it.
That's right.
Which makes you kind of link in a little bit more to it, It's very interesting.
I played Captain Boyle in grad school, and I feel great similarities between Willie and Boyle. I'm really feeling an affinity to you, Leonard's Da. Yeah, because for me, if the play were only about economics, I don't think we'd give a damn. I think the play is about the father and son thing, finally. I can't let him be what he wants to be. It's not enough, I won't let him alone. And yet he can't escape me. He can't escape needing my approval. And I just think of that scene in Da where he's saying, I just told the Brazilian ambassador this very erudite story, and everyone's laughing, and I'm in my $5,000 suit and my $2,000 shoes, and all of a sudden, Da, you're at my shoulder and telling me, that's a good boy. Now you tell him the one about yes ma'am and no ma'am and ma'am if you please. Is it now time to stuff the duck's ass with the peas? And then I spill the wine on my suit and I realize you're always with me, Da. You're always with me. And that's, he can't escape. He can't escape except through my death. And so somewhere along the line, he's going to realize that I didn't give him $20,000, but I gave him his freedom. Because until I was able to get out of it, he was not able to be free.
As you can see, it's fantastic to cast father and son. Because the play continues. He still talks about the son.
Speaking of the process, there was a question there. Did any of the actors feel a sense of freedom with the organic process that the guys spoke about there? Did you feel a sense of being able to do what you want and explore character more so than maybe if you were directed by the numbers as such? No? Yes?
I don't know, the experiencing it. Like at the beginning when you finish college, you're so used to being often direct blocked and directed really, particularly getting hours and hours of the day dedicated to you. And then when you come out of college first, you don't get that sometimes with some directors, and it kind of throws you and you get a bit angry about it. You're like, why am I getting more attention? But then the more you work, the more you realise every director has a different process, and you have to. It's more you've got to do a lot of work on by yourself, and think about things and not rely so much as you did in your training on different directors. So.
Did you find that process with work with Sasha? That you had to do your own research and you were encouraged to do that and bring that to the table?
Yeah,
Linda said that.
He gave us exercises to go and do and things to go and look about the period and
What did you think about when Sasha made us go in character to the River Lee Hotel as the Lomans for an insight exploration of the Lomans at lunch.
That was great.
So the task was to keep the accent, keep relationships going, but interact with the environment as real.
Actually, that was interesting.
And so the four of them went there, linking up with River Lee staff and all
Why,
that.
hello.
I found it very helpful. I mean, you know,
Why?
well, because I found I was a total pain in the ass. I mean, I'm generally fairly gregarious and I like to tell stories and we have a nice time when I go out socially with people, but I'm Willie Loman now and I'm sitting there going, why are we here? I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here with him. Why'd you bring me here? Oh, Willie, stop it. She's doing it. I'm going, why doesn't she be quiet? So, I mean, it was very good to learn just how you could keep this, as Sasha says, in sight and keep the organic nature of these people. I think that becomes important. Otherwise, acting can get very stale and mechanical. You know, that sort of British thing at its worst, you know your lines, make your faces is deadly when it's at its worst, just as the American equivalent of feeling can also be not so hot. But having the characters real wherever we take them means that when we get in a situation, we can shut out the light, shut out the coughing, shut out the noise, and we can be. And to me, that's what
I
happened.
think a comment in response to Tony's question about the challenge, because, you know, of course it's a challenge. Sometimes it's, you know, I think actors can do what they're told. Good actors can do what they're told. And so that's never a problem. So if the director wants you to scratch your head when you're saying, and I walk through the door, you can do it. But what this process did was, and Sasha kept saying, it's driven by the emotion and the interactivity between the characters. So you found yourself interacting with, so Linda and Willie, for example, working it out between us and not doing what it is we were told to do, but more what we felt worked between us. And so far, you know, unless it all comes crumbling down, it has worked.
And so just a quick answer to your question about the rehearsal. I worked a lot on Robert Lepage. He's a Quebec theatre director. I had 3 books on him. I spent time, so that's kind of my area. And so quite a lot of stuff I'm bringing in are actually from that type of theatricality, which is based on an actor, based on mediated environment, based on kind of bringing different things, personalizing text. So that kind of influences me a lot. So this is basically a system to a madness. I didn't walk into it kind of, hey, hi, you know, I actually follow quite effective way that exists for the last 30 years, and it's kind of dominating the theatre practice, which interests me. But there's also another thing, just a quick reference that we need to close, is that, you know, I really don't know how to direct this play if I'm following the straightforward kind of traditional directing with objectives, characters, because it's all emotions. I mean, how do you direct emotions? How do I get them to do emotions? So what I wanted to do is to get triggers. I was going for psychological triggers, which would be driven by them. So that's why I have to listen, play on each other, listen to each other, respond to each other, and have a character that comes from you. It's you. It's your second skin. So character plus triggers. Otherwise, I don't, you know, seriously, if you think of it as a director, you know, how do you direct emotion like that? When son and father confront each other for the first time and open each other up to a point where they do open each other up. I mean, what do you do? So stand there next to a chair and then project. It's not possible. So you gotta find a trigger that opens certain things up for them. So in fact, I didn't really direct this. I was more working on environments than directing in a kind of traditional sense.
Well, it seemed to have worked, and I think that the whole instinctive thing that you brought out in the actors should travel very well when you go to a different place, because I think, as you said, you respond to the sight, and hopefully the actors will be instinctive enough to follow you. Sasha, thank you very much.
Thank you for helping us. Thank you for coming.